So good afternoon and good evening. Welcome to the customer story of Aegon Asset Management. I'm Alexander Wierstra. I am transformation lead for Aegon Asset Management, and I joined the company 3 years ago in the early stages of the Safe Agile transformation, and I will be presenting today together with Debbie.
Hi everyone, I'm Debbie White and I'm the global head of the APMO. Alex and I both work in our global change office. So before we begin in the details of our presentation today, I just want to give you some context about our business. Aegon Asset Management has our roots in the insurance business. Our heritage dates way back to 1844 when a funeral association was founded in the Netherlands. Our business is very traditional and it's highly regulated. AAM is an active global investment manager, which means we invest globally and we serve global clients. We have about 380 investment professionals and roughly 1,200 employees working in 17 locations across Europe, the Americas, and Asia. We invest primarily for institutional investors, so think of your pension plans, public funds, insurance companies, and the like. Our assets under management as of the middle of 2020 are approximately 408 billion USD. So with that context regarding our size and scope, let's move on to talk about our SAFE journey. As I mentioned previously, we have employees across the globe. Our primary change teams reside in the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and the US. As our organization has grown and our client demands have changed, fee pressures have dramatically impacted the asset management industry. Our leadership has been clear. To compete in this business, we need to start acting like one global organization. So enter SAFE. We chose this framework for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, we need to meet our client demands consistently. And sometimes that means that we just need to make sure we're regulatorily compliant. Sometimes we need to make modifications to a system to provide a client new information. And sometimes it means making a statement change, for example, for a client or for a potential client. Secondly, as I also mentioned previously, we're in a highly regulated industry. We have stringent requirements for auditability of our actions, but we require flexibility as our priorities change because, again, we have to meet client demands quickly. Our clients are global, and we needed to get global and stay globally aligned with our objectives and our priorities. We envision SAFE as a way to align our regions around our priorities and ensure a consistent global view on our organizational strategy. With that, I'll turn it to Alex, and you can talk a little bit about our timeline and our journey.
Yeah, because our decision to go to SAFE is one, and that actually didn't really come like a revolution, it was more an evolution. There's a few things that I think is good to highlight as context for the rest of the presentation to share a bit about the steps that we made. I think it was somewhere in 2015 where we saw the first steps into an agile way of working, where one or two teams started adopting Scrum practices, as it was seen as a successful way of delivering some crucial system implementations. The question was, how can we scale that up and make that a bigger success? A decision was made in 2017 to start a first PI planning event with the Dutch change teams, and we didn't really have an art started at that time. It was just a way to get familiar with the framework, to get familiar with the concept of PI planning, and do planning for the upcoming quarter together with the business, and that was seen as a success at that time. At the same time, we saw other steps in other areas, like in the US, but also in the UK, where in a much different pace, a faster pace, arts were launched in the same fashion as in the NL. And somewhere in the sort of midst of 2018, we had 3 arts, and it was time to scale it up to the portfolio level, to extend to the portfolio. And as we had that system running at the time with 2 separate entities in the US and in Europe, we had a consistent framework globally operating, but still with 2 different focuses in both the US and Europe. We also saw that those first successful PIs, the first successful PI planning events, and the delivery after that wasn't always that successful, but there was a true belief in the company that we were on a path for success and we needed to sustain that. But in order to really get that executive commitment and get that executive involvement, we founded a Latte structure. And that Latte structure also consisted of an executive Latte group, and it was somewhere in January 2018. And as the trains matured and as the trains developed, more and more cadence was synchronized, and also PI planning events took place at the same time. And It was in May 2019 where I think it really felt for the first time we were really operating together in a global cadence and in a global structure. And when we had a global paper, scissors, rocks game, where the finalists from the different locations were virtually competing against each other. And I think that's when it really felt like we were working in one system and more as one company. In February 2020, the company was united into one global entity, a truly global company. And the work that we've done to lead up to that, I think really helped us to already become a global change team. We're not done yet. We never will be probably, but we are currently, as we started the arts from a location perspective and really started bottom up, as we're becoming a global company, we are looking at realigning our value streams along product lines that are also going to be more global. So that will definitely change the setup of our current trains. As I mentioned, in January 2019, our LATA structure was set up, and the executive LATA was founded. And to make sure that we were updating the group of executives, but also other stakeholders around us on where we were with the agile transformation and what it was actually bringing us, we set up a case for change. And it was the case for change towards a safe, agile way of working. We identified together with our stakeholders 4 main important drivers for the transformation. And I think the one that really stands out there is predictability. Predictability is important for our customers and in our industry, which means it's also important to the customers of the change teams. Next to that, we looked at the quicker delivery of value, at the engagement of people, and improved quality. Now, on the right side, you will see a bullet of the sort of results we have achieved so far. And it looks like a really nice list. And to be honest, to some extent, it is a good list, but it didn't come for free. It was a pretty big struggle. And I think that if you would ask internally, a lot of people would say we're still not there, but we're really happy with the progress we made. That predictability measure that I mentioned went from when we started introducing our safe way of working from around 50% to a stable 80% in the PIs that we've had at least this year. And I think another noticeable result is the fact that we are seeming to get to value quicker, and that's being appreciated. Doesn't mean that everything goes quicker and everything goes faster, but from projects that took more than 6 months, sometimes to only deliver some bits, we see now that value and value delivery, once things hit the art, can really be delivered within a PI. At least some value can already be achieved, and that's really making visible progress. I think another really important thing that's highlighted by the quote mentioned there by Anthony Mazzella is the transparency. Transparency is mentioned by a lot of people that change is no longer a black box, but because things are visible, because we can see what the teams are working on, because their priorities are clear, the transparency really helped people to understand change and to become a part of it. And that transparency, I think being able to really show and showcase sometimes the progress we had also came from the fact that we really started measuring things and started measuring things throughout. We are using Jira and Confluence as the tools to manage our workflow and manage our work day to day on both portfolio, program, and team level. And that's increased transparency and makes things as objective as we can make them. And that made it possible to really report consistently and objective measures back to the lean agile transformation teams, both on C-suite level and our other stakeholders. And we were lucky with that group of executive stakeholders, I guess. We had an executive sponsor that was the CEO of Europe at the time, and he was really convinced that the step we were making with going into a lean agile way of working was the right one, and it wouldn't come easy. Luckily for us, he went to an asset management summit where he spoke to his peers, and they were all talking about innovation and how they adopted Agile, and that it was not an easy journey. So the lucky thing was that we didn't have to tell him and we didn't have to convince him. His peers already did. So that made him a good advocate to have in our camp. Having someone and finding and identifying someone and maybe finding ways to influence people, just then telling the success or the success it could bring is really a good story to share, I guess. And we had a bit of a hub and spoke model. So we had a lean agile transformation team central to our transformation that connected to our executive LATA. And we had regional transformation teams making sure that the arts were making the step from preparation to launch into sustainment. On the LATA level, we managed a roadmap because we needed to translate that into a plan. This is what our plan looked like, just for a bit of context. This plan was founded in 2018 with some help of a consultant from Aegon that actually is also speaking at the SAFE Summit, Shalene Cuenca. If you look carefully at this slide, you will see that we started with learning, and then we should be into evolving, advancing, and excelling. So by now we should be excelling. I think it was very optimistic. And I think by now we're somewhere between evolving and advancing. So even we had to adopt and adapt and change. Today our roadmap looks a bit different. We are looking at the business agility assessments to measure our maturity, combined with the case for change metrics. And our roadmap currently more looks like a backlog of continuous activities rather than a predefined plan. But as this was very much about the content of our transformation, we also had to get leaders involved in how they would interact differently into our change process. And Debbie, can you share a bit more about that?
Of course. Thanks, Alex. So I talked a bit before about how critical it was and is to be globally aligned. It's been a monumental but really critical task for us to create one governance structure across the globe and have one portfolio backlog. We've done a few things to enable that. One thing is that we've created a portfolio sync meeting every couple of weeks to review our work in process, to validate we're on track with commitments, and determine if there are any items to escalate. We found this meeting to be quite informative to keep our eyes on features that may roll over into the next PI, so they might be in trouble from a delivery perspective, but then also to identify work that might be sneaking in through this side of our governance process and impacting our team flow. We've also created some new processes to ensure the right level of planning before work comes in queue. And I've created new visuals for our executives to enable the elevator pitch. So essentially, we want to make sure that we don't have to keep going back and forth between business owners and Epic owners to get information correct so we can make decisions. So we put some processes in place for that. And I want to talk just a little bit about the elevator pitch piece. We have a roadmap now that depicts really what we're going to be doing within the next 3 months from a detailed perspective, but then 9 months following that from a high level. So we've got the 3+9 roadmap. And then we also have a visual. It's essentially a pie chart of how we're spending our resource time, whether it's on mandatory initiatives, regulatory initiatives, business as usual, things that are business growth initiatives. And those two pieces of data, those two elements together, we put those together and really create a story that can quickly articulate to our executives, hey, we've got excess capacity, we could do some of those more discretionary items, or, well, we really have some tough decisions to make in this next governance structure, so let's be really thoughtful about what we need to do from a regulatory perspective and the business risk associated. So those items together have been really critical to help our executives become more informed and make good decisions. Our transformation team, which Alex is a part of, is comprised of transformation leads and agile coaches. We took a very deliberate step to deep dive into defining the roles in the SAFE structure, particularly the Epic owner, to ensure we're using the resources wisely. Again, we really want to partner the people that need things from the business to people that really know how to execute on change to make sure the story is aligned to enable good decision making. Also, we have one now global APMO that's overseeing the entire organization. What that enables for us is consistent expectations, consistent oversight, consistent decision-making, as opposed to decision-making by region. You'll see here on this slide, we really have not quite yet mastered the funding challenge. We do hire resources to supplement skill sets on each of the arts, but we also require detailed business cases, including the cost of internal resource usage. That's an area where we really still need to learn and grow, and we're hoping to continue to get better in that space. So the next slide, I'll show you just a visual of what our governance structure looks like. The visual on the left is the structure of our streamlined global model we have employed today. The management board sits at the top and sets our strategic direction, from which our Change Portfolio Prioritization Committee, CPPC, makes our trade-off decisions. Importantly, that group is made up of very senior leaders from across the organization, and these people are direct reports to management board members, or MB-1, as we like to call them. Portfolio flow, as I indicated previously, is monitored through our bi-weekly portfolio sync. In this group, we talk about new items that seek entry into our Kanban, we confirm that exit criteria has been met, and we monitor our work in process to make sure that we're not creating flow issues by packing too much in. Finally, our regional business owners help to prepare the epics and features for consideration that will inform our planning group of emerging priorities. This information is communicated to the CPPC members that will advocate on behalf of their business areas, but also help them to make good decisions when they're looking at the business overall. The critical takeaway from this slide, and if you remember nothing else, is that historically we ran 3 different portfolios corresponding to the arts by location. What that means is, in fact, we had 3 executive governance boards, we had 3 different business owner teams, we had 3 different sets of priorities. This streamlined approach that's depicted here has literally been a game changer for us in determining what's in queue across the globe and what kind of trade-off decisions maybe need to make. So the next slide here depicts what we really think is a super, super critical component of this transformation, always, but also particularly if you're dealing in a global organization. Collaboration is really, really critical. And we have tools that enabled collaboration across the globe via, Zoom, like we're talking to today, but also Microsoft Teams. And we also can document our team decisions via our One Oversight tool in Jira, so we can all know what's at the top of the queue and how are we working together to achieve those objectives. Realigning priorities across the globe is much, much easier when everything is managed on cadence. So we ensure that our regional arts, the art in Europe and the art in the US, are planning on the same cadence with PI sequencing at the same time, and also their sprints are aligned. And on this slide, I want to call attention to the quote here in the lower left-hand corner, which is from Stephanie Phelps, who's our Global Director of Reporting and Control. What she says here is, and I'll read it, "I think the fact that the IT staff are more educated about what the business needs is a great outcome." So historically in our waterfall environment, we would have business analysts and business people come together to put together business requirements. We'd hand the requirements over to our folks in IT, and they would work their magic and spit something out on the back end that we would either say was correct or needed more work. In this case, there's true collaboration, looking at screens, talking about working software together that really makes a difference when you're adding value in a quick, iterative way.
What was also really important for us is to find something that would give teams the guidance to really act as agile teams and make a connection from an epic level to a team level. And we borrowed something from Solution Safe, the solution intent, to make sure that we would keep that analysis level on epic level to go not too far, but have enough guidance for trains to really pick up work, and with the right guidance come with new solutions and new ideas. And I think it was really also crucial to make sure that our architecture team got involved and got engaged and found a place in our new safe structure, and also to enable our teams and trains to really pick up epics at the start. Yeah, and to really make that connection from an executive level, from a portfolio level back to the teams, we had to find a place for architecture in that, to do basically 2 things. One is on epic level, ensure that we weren't doing too much analysis going into PI, to make sure that we weren't over analyzing. And on the other hand, really give guidance to our arts and to our teams on where the solution had to fit in, to give guidance on the architecture principles. So we borrowed the solution intent from the solution level in SAFE and really placed that as a key thing into our portfolio Kanban process, and make sure that we had architecture alignment and the solution architect role properly filled in the art structures. Yeah, so we wanted to close this customer story with sharing some of our biggest learnings. Maybe you want to start, Debbie?
So one of the most critical lessons that we learned, and I talked about it just a moment ago, it's illustrated in the upper left corner of this graphic, that continuous communication and feedback is key. And that's really true at all levels. So within teams, between teams, and quite critically between business areas and technical functions. So just, managing expectations, ongoing conversation is really helpful and powerful. It creates transparency and also helps to manage time really effectively so that you don't find yourselves waiting to add value because communication isn't well managed. Moving then to the right, in the upper right-hand quadrant, you'll see a map which is a visual that demonstrates that implementing SAFe is a journey. It's hard, and everyone responds in a different way to the demands of the change. I like to think of it, from a family vacation analogy. Some people love a good road trip and they like to meander along and take their time. Some people just want to get where they're going fast and they want to fly to their destination. And maybe when they get to that destination, maybe you realize that, gosh, you just really don't like to hike. Hiking's not for you. There's just no right answer. It's right for some people. It's not right for other people. And you know what? Maybe some people want to go home from their family vacation early. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that as you progress along this journey, you're going to find yourself with other people that really love to hike. And so you can go great places together.
Yeah, and together is, I think, also one of the key elements that is important to highlight. And I think something that we could have made clear at the start is that when you introduce an agile way of working, a lot of people think about agile and the word autonomy resonates with them quite strongly. They feel that the words agile and autonomy mean the same things. Whereas if you start to scale agile, you really need to work together as teams. You're not just part of a team, you're also part of a team of teams. And really playing that alignment card stronger to make sure that people act and think from a train perspective is, I think, really important. And I think something, at least in Europe, we could have been more stronger on. Another part, and that's, I think, the strongest finisher for us, is we had some different approaches to our SAFe implementation throughout our locations, as I mentioned at the start. And I think what we soon learned is that you can't just take bits and pieces from the SAFe big picture and just start and use things at will. It is a system, and you need to apply systems thinking also in your SAFe implementation. Using the textbook approach, sort of in the US and UK, really helped us to go in, understand, and get people aligned quickly. Our sort of slower introduction in the Netherlands helped us and helped AAM get on the SAFe path, but I think we also had quite a lot of work to do to get back on track. So I think the key point there being applying a systems thinking approach in your SAFe implementation is key to make this a success. And by that, I want to thank you for your attention and attending this presentation.